History is written by the victors. Long before Ichigo Kurosaki ever picked up a sword, a silent war raged between two forces meant to protect humanity, the Shinigami and the Quincy. One fought to maintain the balance between worlds. The other fought to eradicate evil entirely. And in the eyes of the Soul Society, that difference was enough to condemn an entire race to extinction. The Quincy Genocide wasn't just a battle. It was calculated, systematic erasure. Families, bloodlines, and centuries of culture wiped out in the name of preserving the world. The Shinigami called it necessary. The Quincy called it unforgettable. Today, we're going to uncover the darkest chapter in Bleach's history, the famous war known as the Quincy War, the decision that shaped the 1,000-year blood war, and the moral question that still lingers. Was it survival or slaughter? Before they became the hunted, the Quincy were humanity's hidden protectors, spiritually aware and armed with the ability to manipulate reishi, the spiritual particles that make up all matter. They could craft weapons of pure energy, most famously their bows and arrows. But unlike Shinigami, who Zanbakuto purify hollows and send their souls to the afterlife, the Quincy destroyed hollows completely. No purification, no second chance. The soul was erased from existence. This philosophy came from their human origins. The Quincy lived in the world of the living, where hollows posed a constant threat to ordinary people. To them, allowing a hollow to live, even for a second, was unacceptable. Their creed was simple: eradicate evil at its root. But this righteousness carried a dangerous consequence. By removing souls entirely, they disrupted the delicate balance between the living world and the Soul Society. Too many souls destroyed could cause one world to overflow and the other to collapse. The Shinigami saw this as a threat to reality itself. Still, to the Quincy, the Shinigami's balance was a moral compromise, letting evil roam free for the sake of cosmic order. It was a clash of ideologies that could never coexist peacefully. And as we saw, that ideology divide was the spark that lit the path to war. To understand why the Shinigami took such drastic actions, we need to look at the laws that govern their very existence. The Soul Society's duty is to maintain the balance of souls between the world of the living and the afterlife. Every hollow purified by a Shinigami returns its soul to the cycle. Every human that dies joins the flow. It is an unseen but essential rhythm, one that keeps both worlds from collapsing into each other. The Quincy, however, broke that rhythm. Every hollow they destroyed erased a soul from the equation forever. At first, it was a minor issue. The Quincy were few in number, and their reach limited. But as the numbers grew and their hunts intensified, the balance began to shift dangerously. From the Shinigami's perspective, this wasn't just defiance. It was the potential end of everything. Entire realms could crumble under the weight of imbalance. Warnings were sent. Requests for the Quincy to change their methods were ignored. To the Quincy, compromise meant allowing hollows to slaughter innocent humans. What Soul Society saw as a ticking time bomb, the Quincy saw as a moral duty. And when both sides believed they were fighting for the very survival of the world, there was never going to be a peaceful resolution. What followed wasn't a battle, it was an extermination. Once the Soul Society's patience ran out, the Goatee 13 moved in with the precision of an executioner's blade. Entire squads were deployed into the world of the living, not to contain the Quincy threat, but to erase it. The first strikes were swift and merciless, targeting Quincy strongholds and known families. There was no distinction between warriors and civilians. Bloodlines were marked and annihilated. In the official records, it was described as restoring balance. In reality, it was a purge. The white glow of Quincy arrows that drowned out by the black robes and steel of the Shinigami. And one by one, the Quincy fell. Generations of knowledge and culture were lost in days. Families that had stood against hollows for centuries were reduced to whispers and scattered survivors. Even the few who tried to negotiate were cut down, their pleas dismissed as too little too late. For the Shinigami, it was a grim necessity, an operation that had to be carried out in full, no matter the cost, to protect both worlds. For the Quincy, it was the ultimate betrayal. The so-called guardians of the afterlife had turned into executioners, and yet the genocide didn't wipe all of them out. A handful survived, setting the stage for a vengeance that would take centuries to ignite. When the killing stopped, silence replaced the thunder of battle, but it was not the silence of peace. The Quincy were all but erased from history, their culture reduced to fragments hidden in the shadows. What remained were scattered survivors, forced into secrecy, their bloodline a dangerous secret to protect rather than a proud heritage to share. Among them, Soken Ishida, who tried to mend together the bridge between Quincy and Shinigami. He trained new Quincy in restraint, teaching them to coexist with the balance of souls rather than disrupt it. But this effort went largely unnoticed or ignored by the Soul Society. The wounds were too deep. Trust was gone. For the Shinigami, the genocide was a success. The balance restored, the threat neutralized, but in reality, it planted seeds of resentment that would grow for centuries. In the heart of the Serete, captains could sleep soundly. In the shadows of the human world, the survivors would only wait. And wait they did. Over the years, those few remnants whispered of the one who would return to lead them, the father of all Quincy, Yhwach. When they finally rose, it wasn't just to reclaim dominance. It was to avenge the genocide and bring Soul Society to its knees. The war that followed was not a new conflict, but the inevitable conclusion of one that had never truly ended. The Quincy Genocide is one of the most morally complex events in Bleach. On paper, the Shinigami's reasoning was airtight. If the Quincy continued destroying souls, the balance of the world would collapse. Entire realms, including the living world itself, could be destroyed. From this perspective, the genocide was not an act of cruelty, but of survival. A horrific decision, yes, but one framed as a necessary evil to protect all existence. But that's the problem. With necessary evil, it's still evil. The Shinigami didn't exhaust every possible alternative. Negotiations were limited and the demand was absolute. Change your ways or die. And in doing so, they crossed from protectors to executioners. From the Quincy side, their actions were born from moral urgency. They lived among humans. They saw the devastation Halos caused every day. To them, allowing a Halo to continue existing for the sake of some cosmic balance was unconscionable. In their eyes, so society was sacrificing innocent lives for the sake of an abstract system. History offers us countless parallels. Ethnic cleansings justified by greater good arguments. Wars wish to preserve a way of life at the expense of entire people. The Quincy Genocide forces us to confront the same uncomfortable truth. When two sides believe they are absolutely right, compromise becomes impossible and the destruction becomes inevitable. So was it justified? That depends on whether you believe the ends can ever truly justify the means. In conclusion, the Quincy Genocide isn't just a footnote in Bleach's history. It's the wound that shaped the entire series. It explains Ishida's distrust, fuels Yhwach's crucible, and casts a shadow over the Soul Society's image as protectors. In this history, there are no true heroes or villains, only factions willing to cross moral lines to protect what they believe in. The Thousand-Year Blood War wasn't born in the present. It was the echo of a massacre centuries old. And perhaps that's the real tragedy, that the Shinigami and Quincy could have been allies, yet chose to be enemies.